Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of H.R. 431 and yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentlewoman from Alabama is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the gentleman from Michigan for joining me on the floor today to support H.R. 431. I have enjoyed our bipartisan working relationship on the House Financial Services Committee, and I am pleased today to share this debate time with him. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 431, a bill to award a Congressional Gold Medal to the foot soldiers who participated in Bloody Sunday, Turnaround Tuesday, or the final Selma to Montgomery Voting Rights March in 1965. March 7, 2015, will mark 50 years since the courageous foot soldiers of the voting rights movement first attempted to march from Selma to Montgomery to protest the denial of their voting rights. Led by our colleague John Lewis of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and Reverend Hosea Williams of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, these foot soldiers began the march towards Alabama State Capitol in Montgomery. They pledged to keep on walking until they secured the freedoms promised to them by the U.S. Constitution. As they crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge, a wall of Alabama state troopers were waiting at the foot of the bridge. News stations from across the country televised the brutality that followed as foot soldiers like Hosea Williams, John Lewis, Amelia Boynton Robinson, Reverend F.D. Reese, Bob Nance of Lowndes County, and Albert Turner Sr. of Perry County, and so many others were attacked on Edmund Pettus Bridge on what has become known as Bloody Sunday. The journey of the foot soldiers we honor today was not an easy one. They were discriminated by whites and ostracized by blacks who were afraid to join them. But still they persevered because they could no longer bear the burdens of second-class citizenship. The president of Dallas County Voters League, Reverend F.D. Reese, wasn't going to let nobody turn him around, he told me. He said that given the conditions that existed in Selma and the South at the time, he wanted to make sure that things were different. He was willing to do whatever was necessary to ensure that people, no matter their race, color, or creed, would have the right to vote. He said, quote, "The Lord gave us determination to keep moving forward. We were determined to let the Lord lead us and direct us so that all people, regardless of their color, would have access to the political process. We were not at all afraid," he went on, "because we were determined that whatever it took, even if it meant our lives, we were going to move Alabama and the state and this nation forward." Amelia Boynton Robinson literally felt the blows of injustice as she was beaten on the bridge by Alabama state troopers and left for dead. Amelia's will and dignity suffered no damage, but made her more resolved than ever to continue the fight for equal voting rights. 2 days after Bloody Sunday, over 2,500 foot soldiers, heeding the call from Dr. Martin Luther King, came to Selma to join the marchers. On March 9, 1965, led by Dr. King and Reverend Ralph Abernathy and many clergy from across this nation, the foot soldiers once again left from the historic Brown Chapel AME Church and walked to the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Dr. King stopped at the top of the bridge while a sea of state troopers stepped aside. On bended knees, Dr. King began to pray as the thousands of marchers joined him. As if moved by the Spirit, Dr. King turned around and walked back to the church. Tuesday was not to be the day to complete the 54-mile journey. The second march attempt was known as Turnaround Tuesday. The fight for voting rights was fought both in the streets and in the courtroom. Attorney Fred Gray helped pave the way for the final Selma to Montgomery march. He was a member of the legal team that represented Hosea Williams, John Lewis, and Amelia Boynton Robinson in Williams versus Wallace. Because of his work and the courage of an Alabama federal judge Frank Johnson ruled that the foot soldiers had a First Amendment right to petition the government through peaceful protests and ordered federal agents to provide full protection to the foot soldiers during the Selma to Montgomery March. Under court order, the U.S. Army, the federalized Alabama National Guard, and countless federal agencies and marshals escorted more than 8,000 foot soldiers on March 21, 1965. As these brave men and women began their historic 54-mile journey from Selma to the steps of the Alabama State Capitol in Montgomery, Alabama. The extraordinary bravery and sacrifices these foot soldiers displayed in pursuit of a peaceful march from Selma to Montgomery brought national attention to the struggle for equal voting rights and served as a catalyst for Congress to pass the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which President Lyndon Johnson signed into law on August 6, 1965. Mr. Speaker, as Alabama's first Black Congresswoman, I know that the journey that I now take was only made possible because of the courage and bravery of the foot soldiers of the voting rights movement. As a proud native of Selma, and the U.S. representative who now represents Selma and parts of Montgomery, I am the direct beneficiary of their sacrifice. During this 50th commemoration of the voting rights movement and the 50th anniversary of the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, it is befitting that this august body would bestow upon the foot soldiers of the voting rights movement our highest civilian honor, a Congressional Gold Medal for their valor and determination in relentlessly pursuing the promise of our great Constitution, that all men and women were indeed created equal. I am proud to be joined by my colleague Martha Roby and the entire Alabama congressional delegation, Representatives Aderholt, Rogers, Brooks, Byrne, and Palmer, as original co-sponsors of this Congressional Gold Medal bill. I want to thank the more than 300 colleagues who also signed on to the bill. A special thanks to the leadership of both parties, Speaker Boehner, Majority Leader McCarthy, and Minority Leader Pelosi and Whip Hoyer for their support in getting this legislation on the floor today. This would not have been possible without the help and support of Chairman Hensarling and Ranking Member Waters of the House Financial Services Committee. To the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Heisinger, thank you. It is an honor to stand with you today to pay tribute to the foot soldiers of the voting rights movement. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on H.R. 431, a bill that honors the foot soldiers who participated in Bloody Sunday, Turnaround Tuesday, and the final march from Selma to Montgomery with a Congressional Gold Medal, which is Congress's highest civilian honor. I hope this medal serves as a powerful reminder of the many sacrifices that were made. You know, they say that the price of freedom is never free. Well, the foot soldiers of the voting rights movement paid the ultimate price so that this nation could live up to the ideals of equality and justice for all. This nation should never forget those who marched, prayed, and died in the pursuit of civil rights, voting rights, and social change. I urge my colleagues to join us in voting in favor of H.R. 431.